Well, hello, we're back, and I'm still in Wexford.
But I'm still not Dan.
You sure about that?
Again, I'm Dan.
I'm Dan, he's
I'm
a big
big
guy.
giant Dan. My red hair and my arms the size of everybody else's legs.
That's it.
I don't know why I'm using this accent.
I don't know, because Dan's not American.
He's Irish. We'll continue on.
That's
anyway.
it. Alright, so we're still in Wexford with Kev.
Yes, we are.
Excellent. And today we are looking at solid-state amps.
Ooh.
Are they good? Are they bad? What's the difference? Do you know the difference? Is there a difference?
Yeah, well, I mean, the great debate.
The great debate.
Oh.
But we've got three types of solid-state amps, which makes a big difference to the sound quality.
Absolutely.
So the first type is an analog solid-state amp. And the analog solid-state amps were your first generation. I mean, Marshall were doing solid-state amps in the 1970s. They were really modelled off the JMP.
Yeah.
Also,
well,
the
I mean,
JCM
even Fender had solid state versions of their big name amplifiers. There were solid state basement type amplifiers and things like that. And they didn't work out too well for them. But that was going to be the wave of the future. The valve over here, or vacuum tube in America, was going to be phased out. Everybody was doing solid state amplifiers at one time because it was the wave of the future.
They're great for home use. They're cheaper, but the analog amps are more like an old valve amp, where they're a very dry sounding amp. There's no effects, there's no reverb, there's no nothing. So they are more similar.
Yeah.
The next type of amp, and this is where they really cheapened the amps, and it was all to do with a huge price point, and that's the digital amps.
Yeah, well, they were primarily brought out for young players or bedroom players that wanted a shed load of effects and everything like that in a really small package, but couldn't get anything more than I mean, they made them in 100 watts and everything like that, but their main attack point was the 10 to 30 watt amplifier.
Yeah.
For home use.
Exactly. So you didn't have to buy a big array of pedals. You could basically plug in and have fun with
and get your tone. Yeah.
Cheap amount of money. The next generation, which came out of that, was the modeling amps.
Yeah. Which not just gave you the effects. They kind of gave you the different sounds of different amplifiers. Some better than others, companies like Line 6, things like that. The one that I'm playing through today, the Roland Cube.
The Valvetronics.
The Valvetronics. You had a lot of, you have the Vox with the Valvetronics.
Yeah.
You had some of the Marshall valve states that would have like a chorus effect or something in it and things like that, which had a valve preamp. And
how much did that valve preamp do you think?
I don't know. I kind of dug the valve state sound. It was a little bit warmer than but I know there's.
Well, you see a lot of videos actually. Like I've seen a lot of videos of Zach Wall when he's in the studio doing stuff for Guitarist magazine and whatever, and he's using those valve state amps, and hey, he still sounds like Zach.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are using the the valve state amps with a valve preamp, and things like that in their rack setups and things like that. I mean, okay, I might have added a little bit of warmth, but like I personally own the Marshall AVT 150 head and two 412 cabs. I was running basically a valve state full stack.
Yeah.
And while the tone was chunky and cool, it didn't have the full warmth of a full valve amplifier.
Right.
But then again, I could turn it down to almost 0 and still get the same tone as I had at 10, which was
so it still
cool.
works similar to a valve amp in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It was cool, and it was total package was €900 as opposed to $3,000 for a full valve full stack, and it did the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing about the solid state. We know they were built to a price point. So we'll go through a few different sounds of the three different solid state amps. The first one we have is an analog solid state amp, and this one is called the Marshall Lead series. So the amplifier I have here is from about 1984. I would say the biggest downside of this amp was the speaker in it. It was garbage. I replaced the speaker, put a Celestion G30H, it's 70th anniversary speaker, and it has just changed the amp.
It's a great sounding amp.
It's amazing, and it's based off the JCM 800. So it's only a one-channel amp, the same basic controls as a JCM 100, and it works like that. So we'll give it a demo. When you turn it down, she cleans up, but this will have more of a natural sound to it. So it is very a dry sounding amp, like the JCM 800s. It's not a high gain amp.
No,
like
it's a rock and roll amp. It's a medium gain crunch amp. It wouldn't be a high gain amp like a dual rectifier or even like a Marshall JCM 900 and on. Real classic rock and roll tone.
Exactly. So if I'm gone into the rhythm pickup, I've turned the volume down to 5 and the tone down to 5, and you see how much she cleans up.
Yeah, it's really responsive, unlike, a lot of the other solid state amps, like a lot of the cheaper solid state amps, you start to roll off and it gets fizzy and farty and doesn't sound very good.
That's it, and then when you turn it up.
Really...
Lovely.
I know our microphone doesn't do it full justice, but sitting next to it, it's really, it's as valvey as you're going to get without being a valve amp.
It actually reacts like a valve amp. Like, a lot of people go, okay, one channel's not enough. You should be able to click from cleans to distortion. But I'll show you a simple trick. I'm in the rhythm pickup, so you can do your nice, then you just whack it down. So you go from clean straight into distortion. But if you want to clean her up even on the pickup you're on, again down to about 5 and 5, you play lightly, it cleans up. If you play heavy, you still get the rumble out of it, and that it works like a valve amp.
Yeah.
So Marshall did a great job when they
absolutely,
did
yeah, and that's one of the last of the UK Marshall solid state amplifiers.
That's probably the difference. It's a UK made amp.
Now, if you do see a little bit of white fuzz going by at the bottom of the frame, my dog Cody is kind of making himself known, and my daughter is across the room from us as we speak. So
that's it.
So you may see a surprise face or two photobombing us as it happens.
So the next amp we're plugging into is a digital amplifier. This one is the Marshall MG15, and you can see
real stereo,
very digital sounding. It doesn't sound natural.
Yeah, very 15-watt solid state amplifier sound. These were designed, they came as packages, for young kids or beginning players to play in their bedroom, to play along with their stereo system. They're not giggable, they're cheap and cheerful, circuit board printed. I think they're either made in China or Vietnam, I can't remember exactly. I used to use an MG30 as a home practice amp, and it just drove me crazy. Speaker changes, everything, no matter what you did, it just didn't sound good. It sounded like a bunch of angry hornets in a can, and
some people actually I've seen have gigged the MG 100.
Oh yeah. Because they've got some of the MG 100s behind it. It's a 212 cabinet. You've got 2 speakers in it. It's got a little bit of depth. But any of the single speaker MG series, look, they are what they are. Yeah. You can pick one up. An MG15, if I remember correctly, you're looking at under €200. And you get a couple cool effects. Listen, it sounds okay, clean.
It's fine for a young guy who starts off in guitar. You don't want to invest a huge amount of money, but you want to plug in and have a bit of fun, enjoy it, and it'll do all that.
Yeah, exactly. Look, if you want to play along with records, that gives away how old I am. If you want to play along with CDs or MP3s at home, that's what it's for. It's cool. That's why it's got a headphone out and everything like that. It is very much what it is in its price point. Yeah. Look, you're not going to be playing Wembley Stadium with that one.
No.
And they make a great footrest.
You're a harsh man, Kevin.
Yeah. No, they are what they are. They do their job well. Yeah. But you certainly do get what you pay for.
That's it.
In that respect. Yeah.
The next one we have is a modelling amp, and this is the Cube 80. So these are the sort of amps that what they did to design these amps is they take sound samples from the original amplifiers, whether it's a Mesa Boogie, whether it's a JCM 800, whether it's a Fender, and they use the sound sample to model the sound from that.
And what they've also done is, with the effects that are in it, they use, Roland and Boss are the same company, and they use Boss's Cosm effects engine to basically they try to get as close as they can to Boss's pedal effects.
Right, yeah.
In here, so like your metal setting is very much a Boss metal zone.
Right.
That's
not a good thing, is it?
No. That's why I've never used the metal setting. But the chorus is really nice. Now, the clean channel on this is voiced off of Roland JC 120, which to me is the greatest solid state amp ever made. I think it has the most beautiful clean, which I can give you an example of that. Let me just click my clean channel on here, and what I'll do, I've got a little bit of delay on here for depth purposes, but what I'll do is I'll put some chorus on. So you can see, this was modeled after the JCM 120, or the JC 120. Yeah, so you see there, it's really nice and clean. It's got a beautiful clean. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. Now, this is a considerable step up from the Marshall MG series. Yeah. Like the 80-watt version of this, I mean, you're looking at close to €400. So you're starting to get into proper amp territory. Yeah. There are a few well-known players that actually use these. Robert Smith from The Cure uses a few of these on stage.
Amazing.
Well-known Irish guitar player Anto Drennan, who plays with Mike and the Mechanics and the Cores and a few other people. Great session player, great hired gun player. He is a huge fan of the Roland Cube.
Right,
and
there you go.
Now the Cubes have been discontinued, so you can pick them up pretty cheap if you can find somebody that's letting them go.
That's the thing with solid state, when they're second hand, they're cheap. Yeah, and that's a great thing.
Now they've been replaced with the Boss Katana.
Yeah.
Which is I don't know where you're watching this from, but here in Ireland they're the real big flavor of the month with gigging musicians. I played through one once. I haven't played enough with it to base an opinion, so I'll reserve an opinion on them. But some of the best players in the country here, and some of the most popular players over here, seem to really dig them.
Right.
I'd have to play them more. I really dig the Cube. I had a Cube 60 years ago that I got in a trade deal, and I stupidly sold it on, and I spent years trying to find another Cube 60 until I stumbled across the 80. And they come in. You get the Micro Cube, which is a 10-watt. The Cubes used to come in. Cube 15, Cube 20, 40, and 80. Yeah. And the only difference between the 40 and the 80 is the speaker size. The 80 has a 12-inch speaker, the 40 has a 10-inch speaker, and then the 20 had kind of simplified effects. Yeah. And now some of the amp models, like that's
the distortion.
Yeah, that's the clean, and then we have stack kind of Marshall-y kind of sound. You've got your rectifier. So you can get your metal on if you want. You've got your, and they're real generic with their tones. They don't want to say what they are. So you've got like tweed, which is like a Fender Bassman or Fender Champ. And then you've got Brit Combo, which is Fox AC30 kind of vibe. You've got Deluxe Combo, which is kind of like an old Fender Deluxe Reverb, and then you've got Black Panel, which obviously Fender Blackface, and then you have weirdly enough, as much as I hate to do this, they do have an acoustic simulator, which is, let's see here. Now it's not really an acoustic, but basically it drops your mid-range and everything like that. Look, in a fix for a pub musician or something like that, who's kind of a one-man band playing along with backing tracks.
Yeah, something like that is perfect. That's the whole thing with solid state amps is, if you're not playing a massive venue, they're great for home guitarists, they're great for small gigs, depending on what sort of sound you're looking at doing.
Yeah.
With the famous brands, they were analog solid state amps, and the analog are a very good amp. It's these digital amps, and everyone just throws solid state into the same box, but they're not.
As soon as they say solid state, people don't want anything.
Exactly.
They don't want anything to do with it.
Let's look at some amazing famous guitarists who have used solid state through the years. We've got the Randall amps, Dimebag Darrell. One of the best heavy metal players. Who would have known?
Trademark tone. He wanted that tone, so he purposely picked solid state amps.
JC 120. As Kev said, probably one of the most famous. And you've got likes of Andy Summers from the Police. Zach Wild does all his clean tones on a JC 120 and a 50s Gibson Jr. James Hetfield for his cleans. Yeah. A massive amount of guys, which I can't even remember. So if you know any more guys using the solid states, put it in the comments, because there is an amazing amount of guys. You've got another amp called the Lab Series L5, and that was B.B. King using that amp. I mean, look, he had beautiful tone. B.B. King's tone, on the rhythm pickup, an absolute beautiful creamy tone.
Absolutely.
You can never say a bad word about B.B.'s tone.
If I remember correctly, I may be dead wrong, so feel free to jump online and crucify me. But when I saw the Les Paul trio years ago, back around 2000, 2001, I have the feeling that Lou Paulo and Les were both playing through solid state amplifiers.
Another good example.
And, because it was all about the clean tone,
exactly.
And getting it as clean and crisp as possible.
Yeah. Actually, talking about clean and crisp is actually interesting, because a lot of players, and probably one I can think of at the moment is Joe Satriani. Now, he doesn't use solid state as such, but he's known for using just the clean channel of a valve amp and then using pedals to actually get his distortion. If you were using something like a JC 100 in that same context as a clean amp and then using pedals to get the distortion, really, what's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, it's... a clean tone is a clean tone. I mean, look, there is more... Look, I could drag out the Beast, the orange back there, and you hear the difference in the clean tones. There is an inherent warmth to the valves that you won't get with a solid state. But
it's minimal. And the whole thing is, a lot of people, the general public, may not notice this.
Well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I go to a gig, and, I'm not picking the guy's gear apart.
No way.
If it sounds good, it sounds good.
Yeah.
And nowadays the solid state technology with these things like Axe FX and the Kemper profilers and everything like that have gotten so good.
Yeah.
There's guys out there now that aren't even using an amplifier.
Going straight through the PA.
Going straight into the PA or straight into the desk using a profiler or using a computer. I've used stuff like Amplitube, and things like that.
That's the next generation. As you said, that's really our next step up is the Axe FX. It's the Kemper profiler. There's the Thomas Blurg Blue Amp, where it is like actually a pedal. It's like a pedal amp where you can stomp on, and again, great sounds.
Yeah, well, I've used some of the high-end effects processors like the Boss GT100 and stuff like that without an amp, straight into the PA. Or straight into the computer for recording, or straight into my headphones for practice. But I'm an old school traditionalist. I've got to have a box standing next to me, whether it's I got to have an amplifier, and but it's just the sounds that you're getting out of the stuff these days is so far above and beyond what the cheap. I know those of us of a certain vintage, when we were kids growing up, the solid state amplifiers had like really bad radio speakers in them and things like that. But
one of the amazing ones that surprised me is you've got the Marshall Lead series, the 10, the 20, and the 30. And it's reputed, whether it's true or not, that Billy Gibbons behind stage would have the Lead Series 10 mic'd up. He'd have all these big fake Marshall cabs, and he'd mic up this little Lead Series 10, which a 10 watt amp, and he had a 10-inch speaker in it.
There's so many players out there. I mean, look, a lot of the stuff you see on stage is for looks.
Of course, it is,
you think that to break away from the solid state amplifier discussion for a second, like you got the guys like in Metallica and things like that, you hear the stuff, you assume they're using like Explorers and Flying V's with massive Marshall stacks in the studios and things like that. And a lot of times, they're using Les Pauls or Telecasters,
Exactly.
There's
what do you think they're using and what they're actually using is a different, like Jimmy Page on the first album, that, I think everyone knows he was using a Telecaster.
The famous Stairway to Heaven solo, everybody says one of the greatest Les Paul solos out there, was done on his Telecaster.
Jimi Hendrix, he actually used Flying V's, 335s, upside down Les Pauls, and everyone thinks he was always using a Strat. Was he in the studio?
Yeah, and the old story about Eddie Van Halen using a 50s Junior on the first Van Halen album.
If you Google it, put 56 Junior Eddie Van Halen, there is a lot. There's pictures that come up showing Eddie
from the photo shoot of the first album. Of him holding a Junior, but it just didn't look as cool as the Frankenstrat.
Well, that's a matter of
opinion.
I love my Junior,
from a certain point of view. But I happily play my solid state amplifiers. Like I said, I've got vintage valve amps. I've got a little bit of everything. At one time or another, and I go for my trusty cube because case in point, I used to do a gig in the French Alps every year, and I used to bring my big valve amp. And it was so cold at night that sometimes my valve amp would take hours to power up. And but I had a solid state backup head that I could flip on for the first half of the set while my valve amp was warming up, and I could play because people weren't, they're not going to wait while your amp heats up.
Exactly.
You got a gig.
Exactly.
You got to play.
And that brings us to the whole pros and cons of a solid state amp. So I'll say the pros and you say the cons. The first pro I would say is they're reliable. They don't break down like a valve amp. Your valve's not going to pop on you.
Yeah. Oh, and a con would be especially at the lower price point. They're built to a price point.
Exactly.
And you're not going to get the sweet sound. You're almost to get the good tones. Well, again, it's subjective, but for me to get to the good tones, you're encroaching on high. Middle ground high end amp money. You're looking at €200, €300, €400 or $400 before you start getting into something where it's usable.
Well, next thing I would say is consistency, and what I mean there is if you buy a Cube 80, every Cube 80 would sound the same. And this is the whole thing with valve amps. If you actually change the valves in the amp, it can change the sound of the amp. They're very inconsistent. A lot of those guys, to get their sound, they're going through different tubes to get the sound. One amp will sound very different to the next.
But that brings up to one of the cons as well, is with the solid state amp versus the valve amp. Like if something goes wrong with my cube,
it's trash.
God knows where it's going to be. Like if my effects start to go out, you've got to go into the whole amplifier to find it. If my the power stage starts to crap out, everything's built into one unit. To where you've got a valve amp, you start losing power, you can replace your power valves, or you can replace your preamp valves and stuff like that. It's a lot easier to troubleshoot and on the fly, fix a valve amp if you have to than solid state amp. And again, a lot of them are designed at certain price points where it's all on a circuit board. So if something goes wrong, it goes wrong on a solder joint that's so deep in the circuit board that unless you have a microscope, you're not going to fix it.
That's it. Another pro would be their light. When you're doing small gigs, you just pick up this little amp and you carry it rather than getting a whole big Marshall stack and having to bring in your 4x12 cab, and those heads are heavy.
Exactly. Yeah. I've this cube is an 80-watt amplifier, and my 9-year-old daughter can carry it down a flight of steps, whereas my 120-watt valve combo weighs over 100 pounds, and it takes in a perfect world 2 people to carry it.
That's it. Yeah.
And I'm happy with the solid states for now. I dig them. I love them.
Well, the next, one of the upcoming videos, I've got a great little Marshall SL5 amp. And
fantastic amplifier.
Fantastic amp. That and the Lead 30, they're both based off the JCM 800. So I want to do a shootout between that. And then
that'd be a good shootout.
Exactly.
Because you're going valve versus solid state, but
which are based off the same amp.
Based off the same circuit.
And an analog. So it'll be very interesting.
Could be a bit of a nail biter because I know both amps very well.
They're great amps. Yeah. Both of them are great amps.
It'd be hard to say who'd come out on top of that one.
That's it. So that's our definition of solid state amps. There's the good, the bad, the ugly.
Absolutely.
But there is a lot of good.
Yeah, no, I love them. I dig them, and like I said, if you watched the other video that we did, I say, again, don't chase somebody else's tone, make your own, and you can get a lot of really, really cool sounds out of a solid state amplifier. And the most important thing when shopping for stuff is use your own ears, don't use somebody else's.
Exactly.
If you dig it and you love it, then that's the tone for you.
It's all in the EQ. Unfortunately, if people don't have experience, they don't know how to EQ the amp, and it takes a lot of time to do that and to play with your treble, your mids, and your gain and your bass to get that right sound. But once you get it, you can really make these cheaper amps sound like a lot.
Oh, absolutely, quality. Absolutely. A lot of times, they tell you, oh, you can't achieve this certain tone or whatever. It's just like, look, play with it, and come out. I've recorded some stuff before that, to put up on YouTube that people were surprised I was playing, a cube.
Yeah.
With feedback, E sustain and all that stuff. And then when I tell them I'm playing a Cube 80, they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, surprise. Listen, you don't have to have $1 million budget to get a really good sound, and it's all about, it's everything. If you're on a budget, get yourself as good of a guitar as you can afford, and as good of an amp as you can afford, and play everything you possibly can, and get into it. Don't go in with every penny you have saved and say, give me the most expensive amp in the shop, because you got to know
how to use it, and
exactly.
There's no good putting a 100-watt stack in your living room because you can't use it. You turn that thing up to number 1, you place one chord, and it'll slam you against the wall.
Exactly.
It's just unusable. So, an application has an application.
The room you're looking at is 14 feet wide. Okay, and that 120-watt orange amplifier never gets turned on. But the Cube is.
That's it.
And just rock out with what you can, and you can make it sound like you're in an arena with a very small amplifier.
That's it.
If you can avoid the little ones, the real little ones,
go for at least a sort of 30-watt. Solid state amp.
That's
when you're getting a bit better quality sound out.
Yeah, if you're a beginning player that saved up €100, you can save up 100 more. Take an extra couple of months and save up the extra €100, because with solid state amps, like those €100 increments
mean a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much it on our solid state shootout. I hope you enjoyed the vid, and we'll catch you again real soon. And thank you very much again, Kev.
Absolutely, brother. Anytime.
Always fun.
Thanks for coming down to Wexford once more.
Cheers. Catch you later.